Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview truly incredible fathers gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 12 to 19, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yes, I am in the thick of it, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Joe Carr. Such a fun dude. He's a husband, a father, a business leader. Him and his wife, they created an incredible baby food company called Serenity Kids to fill a massive gap in the market. Excited for you to learn about that, but enjoy meeting my friend, Joe. All right, drum roll. I've got the one and only Joe Carr here on Fatherhood Field Notes. Joe, how you feeling today?
Awesome.
Dude, it's good to see you. First question right out the gate. How old do you find yourself today?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that I'm 43.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Is that what you've been told? Is that what the birth certificate says? Or is that how you feel?
I think that's what the birth certificate says. I feel like 28, man.
What does 28 mean?
I'm like, I don't think I'll ever be over 30 in my mind. Like, just free spirit, energetic. The world is my oyster. So much to do. No limitations.
So free spirit, I mean, dude, right out the gate, I'm, doing a little research on your business, on you. You and I have had a podcast before. I was on your show. Super awesome. Thank you. But on your Instagram, just jumping into free spirit, I screenshot a picture of you dressed up like a fairy, like a man god fairy with your daughter dressed up like a fairy. And I sent it to Kim, my podcast manager. And I was like, yo, email him and ask him if we could please use this as like our announcement photo.
100%.
Dude, some guys send me pictures of like them in their shirt and tie, like for their post. I'm like, that's dog water. Like, you are a dad. So free spirit, just talk to me about this costume that you made before I get into some of my regular questions.
I've always been a little larger than life. I actually wore costumes most of the time when I was in elementary school. They wouldn't let me wear them at school. So anytime we were going somewhere in public, like after school, we were going to the mall or we were going to McDonald's, I would pick out one of my costumes and I would wear a costume that I had assembled. I created these as a kid. I went through a long period where I didn't get to do that. And then recently, my wife and I adopted the Fair Play system of household management, which we can talk a lot more about, but it's a massive game changer. One of the things that Fair Play does is creates what's called unicorn space, which is like, what are the things that you love to do? It's different than self-care, which is like working out or prayer, meditation. It's like unicorn, like, what do I just feel alive doing? Like, what's my thing? It's often creative. So I was like, I want to make more costumes. I kind of, I would always make cool costumes for Halloween. Maybe if Della had a themed birthday party, I would like make a costume for that, real makeshift. But I was like, I just want to start making them all the time. And I'll always love going to the Renaissance Festival. And I always felt underdressed at the Renaissance Festival. I was like, I can piece together cool Renaissance-y stuff, but like, I want to like show up here. Like, this is a costume place, right? And I always wanted to be a fairy. And I just had this idea to be I couldn't just be a regular fairy. I wanted to be like sort of a manly fairy. And I thought I had this idea to be a fairy knight, like a combination of like warrior fairy. And I put that into ChatGPT, like, show me what a fairy knight.
Oh, sick. Okay, so this, because in your Instagram post, it shows the like AI fairy knight. I was assuming this was like some fairyland person because it was legit.
Yeah, I always search if somebody else has done it. Like, so show me, I just Google search costume, fairy knight, whatever. Nobody had done this from what I could tell. Nobody had made a fairy knight costume, at least, and put it online that I could find. So I had ChatGPT design it for me. I said, like, make all the armor out of bark and leaves and acorns. I want an acorn helmet. I had this idea for an acorn helmet that was like an acorn. So it's like, looks small, but is big. And made this really cool design. I refined it a little bit, but as you can see it online, a really cool design. And then I set to work making it. And there was a new Renaissance Festival announced a few weeks from when I got the idea. So I like hustled and made it, put a lot of work into it and made it. And it turned out super badass.
Yeah, for real. So if you're listening to this, this is not, I made this in 2 hours out of cardboard and crayons. This is like legit. I would have thought you would have spent, $500 to $1,000 on buying the costume just based on my visually seeing you in it. But then I read the description, like 20 hours, made it yourself. Super freaking cool. My favorite piece was like the huge single acorn covering your man parts was like, dude, legit, right?
The acorn spore, and I call that. I had to 3D print that. My dad 3D printed that and nailed it too.
Bro. So I bring this up out the gate because I know we're going to talk about a bunch of cool things, like your dad and you're in the dad space and have a cool business and whatever. That's good. I don't want to say whatever, but the fact of seeing you full send, your daughter clearly has a love for fairies herself, which we'll talk about. But to see you and her standing side by side in your fairy costumes and you're owning the shit out of that costume, it just made me go, regardless of any of the like, whoa, cool ahas we talk about on here, like you're a full send dad at a Renaissance festival with your daughter living out this like beautiful unicorn space. Like, dude, congrats. It's really effing cool.
Yeah, it really inspired her. She felt upstaged. So she had kind of a simple fairy costume I'd made her. And I was getting lots of attention because mine was so elaborate, as you said. And she felt a little upstaged. She's like, nobody even noticed me. I was like, well, I need to make you something more elaborate if you want to but you're pretty cute. So it won't take much for you to be noticed over me. So we designed her. She wanted to be a flower fairy princess. So I used ChatGPT for that as well. Like, show me a flower fairy princess that's a 6-year-old and is a Renaissance style dress, but made from like leaves and flowers and vines, and got the ChatGPT's design for her and then designed her dress. And my wife then said, I want one. I'll wear a fairy dress. We'll be a fairy family. And so I made her one. And then Della needed a performance piece for her spring showcase. She didn't want to sing. She was really shy about singing, even though she's a really good singer. And so we had this idea. I was like, what if you made up a story about this fairy family, and how they came together? She's like, oh yeah, I'll write that story. Here's the story. She like spits out this like beautiful fantasy story narrative. So then I make the costumes. We do a photo shoot illustrating the story. So about 12 different shots, and I hire a graphic designer to like add some graphics in with the photos. I print them on giant cardstock, and she tells this story live to her whole school while I show these photos while wearing the costume. And it was a really powerful experience for her. She totally nailed it. But I tell you, it brought up so much dad trauma for me.
Whoa.
I had such a hard time with it. It was like one of the coolest and most important things I've like ever done. And I was like not able to sleep. I was getting migraines.
Up until the event.
Yeah.
Whoa. What was there? What was like the hiccup?
Some part of me was just sure I wasn't going to be enough.
Oh.
Some part of me was just like, I really had to face this fact that being a good dad some part of me is impossible to ever be enough of a good enough dad.
Do you feel like you were going to let her down?
I guess so. Or she was very clearly not going to be let down. She even told me so. She's like, Dad, I could just get up there and tell the story. Like, I don't even need the costume. I don't need the photos. The microphone could break and I could still tell the story and have a great time. She's like, you don't need to worry about it. It's like, she's comforting me. But I'm like worked up about this, even though like by all accounts, I did more than any dad probably would ever do for their daughter's show. And I'm still like facing this idea that I'm not a good dad, or that I'm going to mess it up, or it's going to fail, or the pictures aren't going to be printed right, or the costume's going to fall off or something, as if like any of that would make me a bad dad. And like so stressful. And I had to face this idea that some part of me is never going to believe I'm a good dad. Like I can never do enough. Mm-hmm. I have an insatiable piece of me that just believes I can't ever be a good dad. I can't ever be enough.
Dude, thanks for sharing that. I'll tell you, I watched that today. Her dress was kick ass. I'm like, damn, that thing's sick. And I had no idea you made it. One unique thing, though, just from my outside perspective, is you were on stage with her holding these cards, right? Mm-hmm. And you had fairy wings on, but you didn't go all out. And from my perspective, watching it, kind of knowing the potential of a costume you could have made, it was to probably not take away from any of her.
Exactly. She offered for me to wear the costume, and then I pointed out, if I do that, like people might be distracted from you. Like the point is you and the pictures, it's not me. And she's like, "Oh, that makes sense. Yeah." She's like, "How about you?" I was like, "But I could wear all black like a stagehand. I could even have wings." We even came up with like a persona I was. I don't even remember, the ChatGPT comes up with our names too, but it named me. I think it was like Gaft was my first name. She was supposed to introduce me like, "This is my stagehand fairy." So, but yeah, I was intentional about trying to like hide behind the pictures. And if I was kind of prompting her and whispering to her some to like help her remember part of the story, because she can't read. So I was like her teleprompter.
Killer. Okay, now one other question. More will come, but one other question to this. You made this comment, you love to dress up as a kid. You'd go to the mall, you'd go wherever dressed up is whatever it was. And then you made this statement. You said then there was this season where that didn't happen, right? So whether that's like middle school, high school, college, it's, boys shouldn't dress up, whatever the reasoning was, to then fast forward to a stage as an adult man, you're like, you know what? I want unicorn space, and it's a freaking dope ass way to connect with my baby girl. Talk to me through that. Was it like, because I think it's very manly to be able to put on the costume you did. I think it's very manly to come on and be like, yeah, I'm going to own a fairy costume and do this with my daughter. I think a lot of us like run into these insecurities around stuff, whatever. Why'd you stop? And then what led you to feel the freedom to start again?
Yeah, I've been looking at this lately, the patterns in my life. And one of the patterns in my life is this sort of expansion and contraction. As a little kid, I was very expanded. I was very loud. I was very intense. I wore wearing costumes. I was a child actor. I was on television. I was like doing in theater, but people couldn't take it. Like I was in trouble at school all the time. The kids didn't know how to interact with me. I was excluded. I was too loud. I was too weird. I was too dominating, too much for the classroom. And so I kind of was like beaten back and by the time I was in middle school, this semi-popular girl took me under her wing to teach me how to be cool. I was annoying her one day and she was like, "Let me just teach you how to be cool." And like her and her friends taught me how to be cool. And I was like, "Oh my God, I will do anything you say." And they taught me how to be cool, which was a great lesson for me in personal growth, that I could change myself and become better, that I could take back.
Did you become better?
Well, I did. I learned how to. Well, on some level, I did, because I got friends and I could fit in, and I could I wasn't living in as much trauma, right? I got girlfriends, and I learned those basic social skills that I really did need, and I learned the lesson that I could become better, and that was an opportunity for me to always seek, how can I learn from feedback rather than be a victim to my state. So that was good, but there were some problems. I do realize now that there was some repression that happened. That to be cool, to fit in, I had to kind of hide. I had to repress.
Wear certain things, talk certain ways.
How they told me to dress.
Yeah.
Talking about costumes, they told me what clothes to wear, and I would wear those clothes. And so I did that for a while. In late high school, I came out again and was like really loud again. I was like wearing skirts and got super hippied with all this crazy thrift store vintage clothes and homemade jewelry and long hair and colored dreads, and painted my car all these crazy colors. So I got really loud in middle school, and went to a college where that was a little more normal. I went to Evergreen College, where everybody was sort of weird and hippified, but I was seeking that. I was like, I want to go a place where everybody's weird. I want to actually fit in. So I was still sort of in this weird way trying to fit in, even though I was so loud and different, but they weren't even weird enough. So like I, then got really involved in political activism, and went to the Middle East and did all this stuff where the work became so radical that I had to I didn't want my clothes to be a detriment to my message. So I started hiding again physically, but was saying very intense, radical
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great.
That period lasted a long time, all the way to starting the company. I was sort of hiding in this way of hey, I'm trying to change the world, but so I can't come off really crazy looking.
For sure, yeah.
So we start the company, and I'm still hiding for a while, but it wasn't until the company got to a certain place and we brought on Fair Play, and I had this unicorn space where I was like, oh, now I can kind of come out again. Now the company's solid and I can't embarrass anybody. Now it's okay to be big and loud. And my wife all along was like, wear the costumes, be loud, be yourself. Dress more yourself. And she's really supported me being that way, even though she is not that way. She's even wearing that fairy costume for her was a stretch. She had to really push herself to show up in a costume.
Where does her confidence and your confidence come in to step into that space, right? Like, let me ask this first. How many years you guys been married?
Man, she always knows. We've been together like 8 years.
Okay.
I think we've been married 7 years.
How does this trust, this bond come where it's like you're not really worried about what other people think?
Yeah. Let me say that again. I think we met in 2016 and started dating, and then we got married in 2018. So we were together 2 years, and then so married 7 years together, 9 years.
Where does the confidence come from for the two of you to not care what other people think, but not to the point where you're trying to be like a reckless, like you still want to have impact, like positive impact in the world. Not that you can't do both, but like some people just want to be weird to be weird, but it's like you're being you and you're all good with it and confident. And I mean, dude, just to give a shout out, like watching your Instagram, I watched your Halloween. You did this whole rap dressed up like yes, it was killer, dude. And like it was just fun. It was fun. And I think sometimes, especially as men, we've moved away from this ability to just be silly and fun. It's like it got stole from us in middle school and we just hadn't come back to it. And it's really a missed for us to have a great connection with our 6-year-old, for example. So what gives you that freedom to just like be in that zone?
Well, I'm autistic. So one of the autistic superpowers is being able to just tune out anybody's judgment of us. I can just not even notice that people don't like it or don't care. I had to actively learn to notice that I was impacting people in a certain way. Even as one of the things that made me a good performer was I could just get on stage and just go all out, and it didn't even care what the audience thought. Like it wasn't even about the audience. It was just finally there's a place that's big enough for me. I can be as big and loud. In fact, directors were always telling me to tone it down. That was always my feedback. Was like, it's too much. You could tone it down a little bit. I'm like well suited for melodrama or something, or I became a solo performer as a hip hop artist and musician because like if you're a solo performer, you
just go for it. Full send.
All you have is and I could do that. So I have that kind of innate wiring already. And, it's not that we don't care, like you said, it's not that I don't care what people think. Obviously, part of a performer's job is to engage the audience, and the nature of it is that the audience has to like it. So I really like getting feedback from the audience, both during it and afterwards. But ultimately, I couldn't hide if I wanted to. I've tried for different times, so I'm just like let it all the way out. And sometimes it's more than even my 6-year-old can handle. Even she's like it's like more. I wear my she wanted me to be Elsa when she was 2, so we were Frozen for Halloween, and I had this Elsa dress. And at 2, she loved that. But now I want to wear that Elsa dress anytime there's any kind of Disney princess event, and she doesn't like it.
Okay, so how do you respond to that? Do you still rock it or do you pull back? What's your view?
So I've basically insisted on my right to do it and rocked it. She's not that embarrassed. Like she isn't like mortified. If she was like really like, Daddy, please, probably she's like, I'd rather you be a king or a prince. Like I just prefer that. Like she just would prefer it. But I'm like, I really want to wear the Elsa dress. You can wear whatever you want, but I'm going to wear what I wear. And she shows up, and it's funny because everybody thinks I'm wearing it for her. They're like, you're such a good dad. You're willing to wear a dress for your daughter. And I'm like, oh, thanks. But like, actually, she'd rather me be a prince, but like, I'm in drag for me actually, because it's fun to get all the attention of being Elsa versus the kind of the normal king spot.
So you're Elsa. Who is your wife? Would your wife dress up as?
She doesn't dress up. My wife does not like to dress up. So she'll dress up for Halloween, and she'll wear her Halloween costume 3 times is the new deal, because I have all these events around Halloween. I host a party, and we go trick-or-treating, and we have a company party, and we go to other people's parties. It was up to me. We'd be in our costumes all week long. And she's like, nope, you make me a costume and I will wear it 3 times for Halloween. And then she volunteered graciously to wear the fairy costume for Della's project. But like that took a lot from her. So she's nothing. So Della, I tried to get Della to be Anna. She was originally Anna. She loved Anna from Frozen. So she was Anna and I was Elsa. That Halloween, my wife was the reindeer. Was it Sven, which she thinks was funny. So I made her a sexy reindeer costume.
Nice. So for you, with like the changes in our world, has it shifted? Clearly it hasn't. And so maybe it's just like, you're just like, who cares what someone thinks about it? Clearly it's like, there is more like transgender, this, that. It's like, you don't like, that's all just here to the side. I'm wearing the Elsa dress with my kid. It doesn't really matter to me what somebody thinks. Like, I'm clearly married to her mom and none of that really matters. Like, how do you, with our shifting world?
I wore skirts in high school, so like the cross-dressing thing, the defying gender thing has been, a constant piece of my identity of, I hid it for a long time, but I've never believed that any clothing should be defined by a certain gender. I've never, I don't agree with all the repression and the gay rights movement and the trans rights movements. You have a variety of transgendered friends. So very much support them in their right to have their gender expression and dress the way they want. It's funny, me going on the streets of Austin dressed as Elsa when we're like on our way to the movie theater or whatever. People act like it. People don't pretend they don't notice. They were like, I guess there's enough awareness around it now that like you're not supposed to make a big deal if a man's in a dress. That's his right to just be. So I thought that was really interesting because in the past, anytime I went out and drag, people would like look at me and stuff, which of course I expect and I kind of enjoy, as you point out. But in Austin, it was like I'd be on an elevator with like normally dressed people, and I'm as Elsa, and they're just like, like don't even notice. Then of course I go to the movie theater and they know exactly what this is. This is a dad dressed as Elsa for his daughter. And they're like, oh, love it. And I get all this attention. But it's interesting how the culture's changed, that it is meant to be seen as normal for a man to be expressed that way. And of course, Austin, we have people dressed on all kinds of weird,
Austin's
weird
definitely got
its,
yeah. Man, interesting. Okay. So you guys live in Austin. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Live in Austin. And then talk to me about your company. What is it that you do for a living and provide value out in the world?
Yes. So my wife, Serenity, was a very sick kid. She had a ton of stomach issues, just constantly sick, really underweight, really like bad allergies and anxiety and all kinds of stuff that turned out to be leaky gut. Turned out to be what we now know is just really, really bad gut dysbiosis. And she was put on all kinds of medicine and told she had to take drugs for the rest of her life just to be able to eat. And she got to a point where she's like, there's got to be something better than this. And she's a pretty good researcher. So she started doing her own research and found the paleo diet. And this was in the kind of 2010s. And paleo was just kind of coming around. And she discovered the paleo diet. It really changed her whole life, like changing her diet and some of the other techniques around, biohacking and ancestral practices really, really, really helped her. And so that's actually how we met. She was doing a lecture on the paleo diet for the company I was working at, and I met her that way. And I've always also been a seeker looking for ways to be better. And as an autistic person, also had gut issues and food stuff, various allergies and so forth. So food was important to me, but she really helped me see how important food is to health optimization. So when we got serious and started planning to have a baby, first thing we looked for was baby food. That was like her thought was, I want to make sure this kid doesn't grow up sick like me. There's got to be some cool like paleo style baby foods. And she started looking for it and found nothing. It was all fruit based. It was all grain based, essentially sugars and grains, the foods that had made us sick, were all that was available for babies. So she's like, well, maybe this is what babies need. I'm going to do research. And she dove into all the science on what babies need. And turns out babies needed basically what we were eating: meat, veggies, fats, right? They don't eat sugars. They don't eat grains. And basically the baby food aisle was the polar opposite of what babies need. And it's causing babies and kids to be sick and addicted to sugar and diabetes and obesity and mental and emotional disorders, and all this health epidemic of children in our country is starting in infancy. It's starting with baby foods. So she got really mad and was like, basically I'm going to have to make all my own baby food. But I was in entrepreneurial mode at the time. I had a couple of failed business projects. She had tried a paleo coaching business that didn't work. So we were both kind of entrepreneur by nature. And I was looking at something different to do. And this baby food opportunity seemed really big. I was like, this looks like a really big opportunity. I had no idea how hard it was going to be, no idea what we were really getting into. But everybody we talked about this to, like, what about a baby food made from meat and veggies? Everybody who wasn't a parent was like, that doesn't exist. That should exist. And everybody who was a parent was like, yes, I need that so bad. And then we even met food industry people, and they were like, that's a huge opportunity. Meat and protein, vegetables, low sugar is huge in the rest of the aisles, and the baby food aisle is missing out on this trend. So it was like this huge opportunity. And so we just decided it was really a God moment for us. It was really like her trauma around her physical health and my trauma from being a kid and my desire to help kids. her like really great research, cautious, careful personality, my like go for it, no holds barred, communicative, social, loud personality together was like the secret. It was our two missions and our two personalities. Both of our businesses had failed because of that balance. Like she had a great program, but no sales and marketing. My stuff, I could sell and market stuff all day long, but the infrastructure was weak because I wasn't detail oriented. So like between the two of us, we could do it. And we just said yes to this. It felt like this was brought to us by a higher power. And we'd done enough work around following our intuition and our spiritual path to say that when God tells you to do something, you better fucking do it.
Yeah.
And and we were like, let's do it. If God's on our side, what can stop us? So we said yes to it. We initially thought it was going to be small. We're going to make $10,000 a month and sell paleo baby food on Amazon. And God wanted it to be much bigger than that. And so everything we said yes to, it got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger. We made the initial recipes in our kitchen. We didn't even have a baby. We were like finding friends' babies to like test these baby foods on. We found some recipes we liked. We found a factory. We were able to get investors. Took 2 years to get the product out. It was a very, very hard product to make. A lot of manufacturing challenges, supply chain challenges, and eventually got to launch. The product's launched the same day our baby was born.
No way. There you go. There's the signs, yeah?
Yes. While we got pregnant while we were launching the products were supposed to come out way earlier, but they were kept getting delayed. And then, yes, all happened on that same day. So obviously God moment, right? Like clearly this is all perfectly divinely orchestrated. Very challenging postpartum period, of course, launching the company and having a baby at the same time was like having twins. So that was really hard, but it forced us to outsource. It forced us to rely on our team and to really like from the very beginning, we were letting other people run it, which was helped us scale our willingness to not try to micromanage everything. And so those came out and 6 years later, we're the number one selling baby food in the country. We are the fastest selling products on every aisle. Those meat baby foods just sell better than anything else out there. And
dude, congratulations. How epic. Yeah. And thank you, right? Thank you. Like creating this incredible gift for the world to have this healthy baby food and that it's doing so well. Like, epic. Now, so your daughter, you have one daughter, correct?
Yes.
Della, 6.
6.5. Yep. Be 7 in August.
What's her favorite or what was her favorite of the Serenity Kids baby food? So,
babies eat almost anything. So as a baby, she loved all of them. She would eat any of them we gave her. We focus a lot on the meat pouches. As she got older, she got a little more picky, but she was all the way up until about 4.5 regularly eating the sweet potato spinach. She'll still eat a sweet potato spinach occasionally. She loves that sweet potato spinach. It's sweet potato spinach and olive oil. It's 3 ingredients. Tastes great.
What's your favorite? So like if you had to, I'm hungry, I'm going to go get one of these pouches off the shelf and suck this baby down. What are you going for?
For a long time, the turmeric chicken was my favorite.
Okay.
Got bone broth and turmeric chicken. Now the chicken curry tastes about as good as it.
Damn, chicken curry for a baby?
Yep.
Let's go, dude. That sounds...
We just launched our World Explorers line to introduce more complex flavors to babies and also tastes better to toddlers. So we got chicken curry and beef chimichurri, wild-caught salmon teriyaki, whole 6 different flavors that are, we have this Mexican chicken stew, tastes kind of like tortilla soup, and those taste really good, even to adults.
Dang, dude, epic. Okay, so where can people find this, get it? If you know somebody who's having a baby, go buy some of this, give them a kit, a pack, like get them started. Like where can people get this stuff?
Yeah. Our website, myserenitykids.com, has everything. It's the biggest selection because it's our homepage, and we've got everything on there. The best deals on there is through our subscription program. You get 20% off if you subscribe. So that's the lowest cost. Pretty much everything's on Amazon, as long as we can keep it in stock. Sometimes we go out of stock here and there on Amazon. We sell so fast. But we're basically number one baby food on Amazon. If you search organic baby food, we're going to come up pretty close. So you can get us on Amazon, but pretty much every grocery store has us too. It's not as wide a selection, but Whole Foods has everything. Most regional chains have a variety. Target, Walmart, has a pretty good selection. So you can kind of find them everywhere.
Dude, epic. Epic. All right, dads listening, regardless of how old your kids are, next time you're at Target, grocery store, whatever, go through, grab one and try it. I'm gonna go try one. Joe, what would you say the role of the father is? How would you describe that?
That's a good question. I think I want to answer a different question, which is what role does fatherhood play in my life, first of all? And that is, I really, I started the Dedicated Joe platform podcast you were on as a focus of how we engage with fatherhood as a personal growth or spiritual practice, how we embrace fatherhood for our own growth and development, how we grow up ourselves through becoming a father. And so that's the role it plays in my life, is it's there to stretch me. It's there to challenge me. It's there to show me my shadows. It's there to push me to be a better man, better person. That's the role fatherhood plays for me. I think if I'm doing that, if I'm engaging with it in that way, I will naturally play the right role of the father, which I think is probably to show up fully, to be myself, to be my full man, to be a role model that engagement, the willingness to make mistakes, willingness to apologize, willingness to, be humble around like, I don't know what I'm doing either. This is your first time being a kid. This is my first time being a dad. This is my partner's first time being a mom. We're all figuring this out together, and I don't have all the answers. So I can ask a lot of questions and I can be accountable when I make a mistake or I do something that doesn't have the result that I want. But I think that's the most important thing we can do, is show up as ourselves, willing to learn, willing to make mistakes, willing to grow, and be supportive, right? There's lots of support, lots of roles we can play. Our kid wants stuff from us. Our wife or partner wants stuff from us. The world wants stuff from us. So engage with that. But mostly it's like how I engage, which is that open, surrendered, committed place.
Yeah, beautiful answer. Because a lot of times we go, especially as men, we go to the doing, right? We go to I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And you're taking it before I can do, or it's really who am I being, right? So like I want to be vulnerable, growth-minded, fully engaged in my own life, not selfishly, but so that I can be for others around me. And ultimately, that's what our kids need, right? Is like, I could tell them, but unless I'm showing them, like 99% of what our kids are going to get is going to be from what we did, not what we said. Absolutely love that answer. Joe, for you, when did you embrace fatherhood? So you clearly have a childlike wonder, enjoyment of life, wanted to have a kid. But I find for dads, for men, it can happen at a different, is it like we're trying and we found out and it's like, yes, this matters, or I saw the baby be delivered and it's like, oh my gosh, I matter, I'm needed. Was it when she took her first steps? When did you go, damn, I'm all in on this thing?
Yeah, I've wanted kids since I was a kid. I drew pictures of my future children when I was 5. Jason and Brittany, I have the little drawing.
That's awesome.
Drawings, they're so cute. Jason and Brittany were my 2 kids that I was planning to have. So I've always wanted kids. I've always been looking for a partner to have kids with. So when Serenity and I got serious, that was like the first thing I said was like, let's have a baby. And she had been married before, didn't really want to be married again. I really wanted to be married, but I was okay. I was like, if you want to have a baby with me, we don't need to be married. Turns out we couldn't actually get pregnant until we were married. Like she had this intuition that the pregnancy wasn't happening because we weren't married. So I planned a wedding and had this great wedding, and we got pregnant on the honeymoon. It happened like right after.
Whoa, dude, sounds like another God moment right there.
She got this message, right, that this is what was needed, and it worked. I remember the pregnancy test being positive, so I think there was a moment in that where it was real. I've thought about this forever, and it's like real now. But it wasn't very long into that. And, we were selling baby food we were trying to sell baby food. I was creating a baby food company. I'd created a lot of youth programs previously, so I'd worked with a lot of other people's kids. I had this sense of like what it's like to be a mentor or be with a child. But I wrote this blog called How to Be a Rockstar Pregnant Father. And I think that was really like the moment you're describing. Like I was having these epiphanies on what does it mean for me to be pregnant? I'm not physically pregnant, but a lot of people talk about we're pregnant or a pregnant dad. And some people object to that terminology because a man can never be pregnant. It's not the same as a woman and all that. I hear you on that. And I wanted to embrace that so that I would feel like I am as in and committed to this as my wife. My body isn't changed in her way, but I wanted to be very clear to myself and to her and to the universe that like it might as well be. this is my baby now and forever, and I will be 100% there. So like, I started to examine, like, what does that mean? If I can't physically carry the baby, how do I show up all the way for that? And I wrote this piece on all these different things I can do around feeding her and learning everything about it and going to all the appointments and researching and buying the gear and setting up the postpartum plan and pre-cooking food. I had this really strong call to build muscle in my body. Like I started working out a bunch more. Like I wanted to like heal any like kind of neck and back pain. And like I started like really working with like a trainer and chiropractor, like getting really strong physically. There was something that like I wanted to be able to like be in my body in this way. And just anything I can do to be there and to be there. And that's how I've approached it all along, is that this is 100% mine. And, she's 100% my wife, so she's also 100% mine. It's not 50-50. It's like I have all responsibility here and show up that way.
Love that. What's something that you've learned about yourself? So you are a growth-minded person. Clearly, when you have a business fail, you learn something. When you get married, you're like, you do life with this human being. You're confronted with parts of yourself. You're like, okay, I need to grow or leave. I got to grow up and change. Having a child can really reveal things. What, in the 6 years that you've had the honor privilege of being Della's dad, have you learned about yourself?
Man, I'm really working right now on this realization that I don't have full approval and access to my emotions. Della,
that's interesting. I wouldn't suspect that.
Yeah, right. I didn't either. I thought I was pretty evolved, emotional. But Della has all these huge, big feelings all the time, as kids do, and we, as we're taught to say, like, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, it's okay, like, feel your feelings, it's all right. It's not okay to hit people, but it's okay to be angry. Like over and over all day long. It's okay. I hear that's really frustrating. It's really sad. Saying it over and over to her, and then and I have really great moments of joy with her, but like we've created this incredible life. We sold half of our shares of the business and created enormous wealth for ourselves. And like I'm able to make these really cool costumes, and I'm able, I have this great house and this incredible daughter and this really supportive wife, and able to start this influencer platform that I've been wanting to do forever. It still wasn't enough. Like I never felt like happy about it. Like I actually was starting to feel kind of sad or angry. I almost was like edging on depression at getting everything I wanted in my life. And it was like, what is this? Like, what is this about? And it turns out like the amount of joy and gratitude that I could have access to is blocked because I am not fully feeling all the grief and anger I have for my childhood. I mean, I have a lot of trauma that I processed logically, and I've spoken about, and I've written about, and I've created youth programs, and I can, talk about the trauma, and I've done, basic trauma healing so that it's not like affecting my day to day in like a scared way. But like, I still, there was more grief and anger and shame than I was capable of feeling as that little boy. I could not feel all that I was being forced to feel, and it got buried in there, and now it's kind of trapped. And so it's manifesting in blocking joy. It's manifesting, I think actually I have a couple of physical ailments, some gallbladder function issues and some migraines that I think are actually emotional, are blocked emotion. I've been getting these divine hits that this is, I've done all the Western healing stuff I can do, scans and supplements and medicines, and nothing works. And that's because I think it's spiritual, psychological. So I'm really now like entering into this place of like, I've been telling my daughter to feel her feelings all this time, and it's okay to feel, but I'm not really fully feeling and present with mine. And now I'm really starting to do that work. Man,
beautiful. Yeah, we were just I'm listening to a book right now, and I've heard this statement before, but I'm listening to a book called Adam something by Richard Rohr. It's about like rites of passage for men and young boys like coming into manhood. He quotes this thing, and I've heard it, you've heard it, but the trauma that we have, if we don't transform it, it's transferred, to those that have been placed in our care. And so I think a lot of men are okay with just like, yeah, life was dog shit at certain times. I don't really need to do anything about it. Other than if I tell you that you're going to transfer that crap to your kid, you probably want to work on it. You clearly want to do the work because you see this bigger point to all of life anyways. So beautiful that you're leaning into that. With that being said, and you've kind of brought up your childhood to some level, you can share whatever you'd like to. But I like to ask my guests about their own dad and ask it in two parts. Is what's something you really appreciated about your dad if your dad was around? And then what's something you wish your dad would have done differently? Again, the whole wish you done differently, I get it. We may not have changed our past, right? Because it made us who we are. But if you were to speak to it, what's something that you wish would have been different or that you are going to do differently?
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, I had really great parents. They were very committed to us and committed to each other and very big hearts, both want to do great in the world. So very service minded, very traditional backgrounds. My mom grew up on a farm. My dad was raised like middle class Catholic. So very like gender roles. My mom was stay at home mom, 100% of the household, her job. My dad, worked all day, came home and expected dinner to be made and then to, pass out on the couch. Played with us, engaged with us, fixed stuff on the house. But, there was that like pretty big division. Parents fought a lot. They weren't ultimately the right match. They did end up getting divorced after my sister and I left the home. And, were never quite the right match for each other, didn't quite have the skills, but cared a lot. He taught me that there's nothing I can't do. I should try to do it. He was a DIY guy. So, if it's broken, you can fix it. There's a way. I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't want to fix it. Where I'm like, it's not a good use of my energy to figure out how to fix that thing. So I'm going to pay somebody. But like, I approach everything with like, well, there's a way to do it. And he used to say, I'm capable of doing anything humanly possible. If a human can do it, I can do it. And he would say, sometimes it might take years for me to learn it, but I'm capable of that. If it's not humanly possible, the one thing that maybe he wasn't sure he was capable of was untangling a slinky. That was debatable whether it was humanly possible or not, but the one thing that he gave up on, and from the only thing I remember giving up on was untangling a slinky.
Damn slinkies! Who came up with that?
I know,
those
right?
things.
Tangles.
Yep.
So and even then it was more like he wasn't willing to spend the energy it would take. But we'd be like, can you lift a building? He's like, yeah, I could hire a building jack and I could use this and we could use the hydraulics and I could lift a building. Like it was this
no problem, unsolvable.
Yeah. Can-do attitude, and also always willing to help people. If someone was broke to the side of the road, it didn't matter if we were late, where we were going, he would pull over and help that person at the side of the road. Like to this day, we'll pull over and try to help somebody in need. And he could often fix it. He could change their tire. He could figure out if he could get their car running, whatever. That was before cell phones. So you were really screwed at the side of the road before cell phones. So like he would always stop. It's that service mentality was great. Back to the feelings. Further, it comes down to feelings. He really did not have any emotional awareness. I think to this day probably doesn't have a lot of emotional awareness. He's happy, he's content, he's at ease in his life, which is great. He could feel anger, that's for sure, as most men can't repress the anger. But I didn't learn a real wide range of emotional expression from him, and really from my mom either. Neither of them have a lot of access to their emotions, so they both are fairly content. They're not like unhinged, but they didn't teach me this huge wide range of emotion. Neither of them also really taught me, they were both very self-sacrificing. They were both willing to like put others' needs before theirs, which is noble and to a certain extent, but eventually that eats you up inside and you become empty, and it's hard to like hear God's voice or know what's right for you or your life if you're kind of putting everybody before you all the time. And so I think as service oriented as they were, it was a little bit extreme, and I've had a hard time learning how to put my own needs first and how to like ask for help and say no or set boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to that original question of me asking about the role the father talked about. Like, you really got to not selfishly take care of you, but take care of you so that you can take care of those around you. And it seems as though because they probably answered the question of what's the role of a parent, of more like you feed them, you clothe them, you make sure they do good in school, and then let them know if they mess up. Doesn't necessarily set you up for success in life, right? So as aware as you are to wanting to set your child up with kind of you working on you, there's still these messages that are still alive inside, right? From the way that you were raised, which is so interesting, right? Being 40 years old and it's like this stuff still matters. And that's why I asked the question, because I want us all to realize like one day our kids could be sitting here in an interview and ask the question, what did your dad do or not do? Right. And there's going to be something. And part of that's just life, right? Like I've similar, like you said, when my daughter was like 16, for example, and we're working through things, I'm like, this is the first time I've ever had a 16-year-old, right? I was 16 once, and I know how my parents did it, but this is the first time. So everything's new and fresh. It's kind of the beauty, the messiness of life. Anything else that you're like, I'm clearly doing this differently with my own kid based on my growing up experience?
Feelings expression is huge. I actually wasn't allowed at the dinner table if I was having feelings. And I've been processing that specific trauma a lot lately as I look at like, why can't I feel feelings? Was like dinner was like the family gathering place. And this is our unity each night. We had this great family dinners, which as a tradition I've repeated, the family dinners. But they're like crying or yelling or being upset at the dinner, which I, as an undiagnosed autistic kid, I'm sure was a lot to handle. I'm not surprised that they were like, you're too much. Like, go figure that out. We're trying to have dinner. But in the process, I took on this idea that I could only be happy. I was only allowed to be happy or content at the dinner table. So like I've always tried to always bury that down. So allowing her feelings, even if we're setting a boundary, even if we don't like it, even if we're tired, that she's allowed to have her feelings doesn't change. The boundary doesn't change that, she can't have ice cream at dinner or whatever it is. But it still allows the feelings. So how to hold firm to the boundary while also allowing for the feelings is tough. Even watching my mom with my daughter, she has a hard time holding the boundary. She's so uncomfortable with the feelings that she'll give in to the boundary to avoid the feelings. And that's like, it almost makes it like, as much as my daughter likes that and she can get whatever she wants, it almost makes her feel like she's not safe to have her feelings because now Nana is trying to fix those feelings all the time. So I think that's a huge one. Other things that I'm doing differently. Well, the attention on me and my wife's relationship is very different. We highly prioritize our relationship. We have date night almost every week. We go on quarterly couples retreats where my mom comes and stays with our daughter, and we go for 3 or 4 days away each quarter to have just time spent on the couple. We have business meetings multiple times a week where we talk about not just the company we run together, but the household. And, Della is sometimes upset about that. Like, I want to go on your date. Why are you having a date without me? And we have to tell her like, mommy and I need time with each other. And, we are very clear about the fact that we need to focus on each other in addition to her, and that means excluding her sometimes. We each have a date with her once a week too. Like I have a daddy-daughter date and she has a mommy-daughter date every week, which I hope to, even when we have a second kid, I hope to maintain that, like each kid gets one-on-one time each week. I call it Saturday Daddy and Daughter Day, so we have Saturday Daddy and Daughter Day, even if might be Sunday sometimes. And then Serenity picks her up from school one day a week and has like an afternoon date with her. So we did that kind of one-on-one time. I don't remember having that with my parents where it was like a lot of focus one-on-one time. And I certainly didn't see them invest that much in each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that's real different.
You made a statement, and I just would like you to maybe make a comment about it. I think as men, clearly it's like we want to fix things. I mean, shoot, I've been married 20 years and I still screw it up when my wife just wants to say something. And I'm like, you told me there's this problem, so I'm going to give you a solution or I'm going to fix it. And it's like, dude, backfire every time. They're smart enough to ask if they want help. But anyways, you made a comment about your daughter not trying to fix the feelings. So I think dudes could hear you're clearly very in tune emotionally. You're in tune with your own emotions to an extent, right? You shared some blockages, but clearly more in tune than many. If my daughter is sad or mad, or my son is angry or sad, what's your view, your opinion on like letting them just go figure it out or sit at the dinner table pissed off or whatever, instead of just being like, yo, go to your room, figure this out on your own. We don't give a crap. We just don't want to see you this way. Or we got to fix this right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we were trained on this by a group called Big Little Feelings, which is one of my most favorite toddler resources. This is really amazing conglomeration of short videos that you can watch all in order. You can search it and you get a little membership. It's like $100 for life for this membership. It's really great value. And they teach some really concrete skills in there about how there's sort of this formula of like, you want the ice cream. I hear you want the ice cream. You're feeling sad that you can't have the ice cream. It makes sense. You want it and you can't have it. That makes sense. You'd feel sad. I hear you that you're sad. It's okay to be sad. They would add, you can have the ice cream after dinner. If there's a way to have the thing they want later, or another thing you can add. Whereas you can still have the ice cream, but after dinner. And I hear that you're sad that you can't have it now, over and over again. And you basically do that until they're done. And you stay with them or you hold them, or if they, respond to what they want. And this is how you deal with a toddler. My daughter hated that you could have it after. I just had to stop using that one. I just had to be like, you want the ice cream? It sucks. You can't have it now. I hear you. It's sad. It's very sad. I get it. Makes sense to be sad. I don't like it she actually responded a lot better when I'd say, I don't like it when I can't have what I want either. And then sometimes she'd be like, really? What's something you want that you can't have? And so for a long time, it was a hot tub. I was like, I really want a hot tub.
You're like, for you to stop crying?
Yeah, right. Now I have a hot tub, so I can't use that one anymore. Now it's a new Tesla. That's my new one now. I was like, I'd love a new Tesla. I cannot justify replacing my existing Tesla with a new Tesla. Like, I can't have it, but I'm kind of sad that I can't have it. So it's like, whatever. But she liked that. That worked well for her to like relating that I could get this. But it's just this validation that the feeling is okay. It makes sense that it's okay to have the feeling. The trigger of the feeling is not irrational. Like, I know I wouldn't cry over not having ice cream, but like for her, that's like, a very big deal. And so just holding in there. And the biggest thing is not breaking the boundary, her knowing that no amount of crying is going to change the boundary, which both says the feeling's okay. And I'm not trying to fix your feeling. And it also says my boundaries are real and you're safe in that. Like, you're not in charge of your boundaries. Like, you're held by me. Kids actually really want boundaries. So they feel safer knowing that they're not in charge of their safety and that nothing they can do can make you waver is really powerful for them. And also, I think that people don't realize that, to give into the boundary to avoid the feeling teaches them that their feeling is either not okay. And I am so afraid of your feeling that I'm going to violate my own boundary to stop your feeling. Or it has the opposite effect of like, if you cry, you're going to get whatever you want. And now it's like now emotion has become manipulative rather than a real expressed emotion. And so having this healthy relationship with it's okay to be told no, and it's okay to have feelings about it. And I still love you and I'm still holding the boundary. Like, that's what parents need. That's what kids need.
Yeah. And then the kid doesn't learn to use false emotion just to be manipulative, right? Because I think you train them like, just have some crazy ass emotions to then get what you want, which then is like just such a gnarly way to live life. Okay, Joe, dude, love it. Fatherhood Field Notes, you're doing it, opening up your life, sharing your notes with us. The mantra behind it is rebel and create. This idea of like, as men, we do want to be these like warrior fighter, fairy battle guys. But we don't want to just be destructive. We want to create something beautiful in its place. So, I mean, clearly you're a rebellious guy in the sense of like rebel against kind of social norms. But when I bring up rebel and create, what's something that you as a father, as a man, are kind of rebelling against and you hope to create in its space? And it could be something as simple as like rebel against, phones at the dinner table so that we can create, beautiful family connection, to something more on a massive scale, but something small, something mid, whatever. What are you rebelling against and what do you hope to create out of that?
I've always been very rebellious and for a long time fought against, and even fought to tear down. I was a revolutionary for a while, calling for collapse of the federal government. That was like my thing. And one of my big grown up moments was when I realized that wouldn't get us anything, that we need to be creating alternatives to it. That was really my work was not in fighting, but in building. So I love this idea of like where, in some way creating is rebelling. You can't create, you have to create something new out of nothing, or you have to replace something that's old. There's a sort of a rebellious spirit in that, in the same way that if you're just fighting against something and not creating, you're not actually rebelling it. You're just giving it more power. So that's a long philosophical argument. It doesn't actually answer your question. I think there's definitely, I think the role of the dad where is being recreated, and we're defying this very old idea that men are the providers and women are the parents, and that men don't play a role in the home, or that men are the disciplinarians and that women are the nurturers. So I think there's a role, there's a different way we nurture, there's a different way we support the home than women necessarily, but everybody gets to create that for themselves. There's no one role to play, there's no one way. This idea that men either have to become women to do that somehow to do housework or to take care of a baby is feminized or is weak or is like, I have to not be as much of a man to do that. I think that we do that as a man. Like, I am nurturing my daughter in a strong, protective way. My wife nurtures my daughter in a warm, embracive, loving, nurturing way. Who's she going to go to if she cuts her leg? She's probably would rather go to my wife for the Band-Aid in that kind of feminine, nurturing way. But if she's got a question about the existential purpose of reality, or if she needs advice on a friend at school that is doing something she doesn't like she's going to come to me for that. So it's just like it's equal in terms of how of the volume between mom and dad. There's a different role, and I wouldn't say that being a dad or a mom that either of those are defined. I think we define it for ourselves, but there is a powerful role that man can play as a man in their household, with their children, with their partner. That is very primal, that is very much in line with who we're meant to be as men, but as fully engaged fathers and husbands.
Yeah, man. Beautiful. Love it. Joe, this has been such a delight getting to know you more. Fun, different than I had expected, which is something that I need more of in my life and I really enjoy. Before I ask my final question, is there anything that we missed? Anything that you would want a new dad, a young dad, a sage dad to hear from you before we go? Anything you didn't share that you would feel like, we needed to touch on this?
Yeah, I'd love to talk a little more about food and feeding. We talked about our products and the value they offer, but figuring out what foods to feed baby can be very challenging, and something a dad can play a huge role in. Mom breastfeeds, and she does that, and you can support her. Dads can support moms in a lot of ways through the breastfeeding, but once it comes time to real food, you're equal partners in that. And so doing the research or figuring out how to start foods is something dads can do. So, around 6 months is the time that is time to think about solid foods. You don't have to worry about it before then. So if you're listening to this and you got a baby younger than that, just don't even worry about it. There's too much other stuff to worry about. No reason to rush it. So babies will start to express interest in food around 6 months, but that's what you're looking for. They want food. They're watching you. They're reaching for it. They need to be able to sit up on their own, just physically, so they can swallow. So they need to be able to sit up, and they need to be showing interest in food. That's kind of like two developmental things. Otherwise, 6-ish months is around the time. Don't rush it. It could be 8 months. No rush for food. But it's actually a lot worse to rush it. There's a lot more problems if you start at 4 months and they're not ready than if you wait. So when in doubt, wait. Breast milk, nature's perfect baby food. The foods that you start with should be the most like breast milk. Breast milk is a very fatty animal product. I like to call it a free-range animal product. But breast milk is 60% fat. It is a lot of fat. So babies need a lot of fat. They need 30 grams of fat a day, which is a huge amount of fat. It's like a stick of butter, 2 sticks of butter.
Yeah, dude. Yes, that's a lot.
It's a lot of fat. So a huge amount of their calories need to come from fat. So meat and animal fats are the best. Still breast milk, obviously, up, all the way through 1 to 2 years, depending on the mom and the relationship. But continued breast milk, but supplementing that with food, fatty foods, avocado, really fatty meats. You can puree the meats yourself. You can buy our pureed meats. You can pre-chew the meat. It's called pre-mastication. It's what we did for thousands of years. I really enjoyed doing that for my daughter. It's a little gross for some people, but I thought it was very primal for me to chew up a piece of steak and then give it to her. She didn't mind if I spit it in her mouth. She thought that was fun. I have some
couple
videos.
Of birds.
I have some videos of me bird feeding her, but there's
wild.
Love it. Really ground meats, or there's lots of different soft meats she can eat on her own. Once they get to 9-10 months, lunch meats are fine, and The lunch meats are very soft. They can pick those up and eat them. Eggs, egg whites, egg yolk, great first foods. And then some vegetables, you can puree vegetables. You can mash up carrot, mash up. They love playing with peas, babies love peas, mashing stuff up for them, mashed up banana. But really, they don't need much sugar. They don't need much fruit. They really need a lot of meat, fats, and veggies. Their breast milk is also pretty high in carbs. And it also has a little bit of a sweet flavor. So if they're breastfeeding, they're probably getting all the carbs they need. And you don't need to teach them to like sugars. They need to learn to like savory foods. So the foods introduced early form the palate. So introducing savory foods in that first year, 6 months to 18 months, all the different flavors you can get in that time period will set them up for healthy eating. One of the problems with sweetened baby foods, all these fruity baby foods, is that they train babies to only want sugar. And as their palate grows, they only want sugar. Now we've got all these sugar addicts. So giving kids those savory foods early, especially meats, and there's really no limits on sodium. Like, you don't need to worry about salt. You don't need to worry about, obviously, fat's key. So really there's a lot of intuition in feeding. Trust yourself, trust the mom. Moms have a lot of intuition around feeding. But when in doubt, it's animal products all day long. They're the most digestible. So starting with meats, eggs, liver's great. We used to give our daughter frozen raw liver. She would teethe on it, kind of gnaw on this frozen raw liver. She loved that stuff. We have this recipe on the website for liver bone broth. We pureed liver with homemade bone broth, and she would drink that in a bottle as a supplement to breast milk. And so those liver meats are really great. Meats and veggies, you can do grains on a limited basis, especially later, after one. You can start with some grains, oatmeal, rice, things like that. I wouldn't recommend doing it too much earlier than that. They're very low in nutrition. They're harder to digest. So if every bite counts, getting that food in them is key. You want to focus on nutrient density, which is going to be mostly animal products. And then pretty soon they can start asking for foods. But our purees, you can feed them just our purees all the time if you want. It's got the whole variety of foods and flavors, make it easy for you. Of course, we don't recommend anybody eating only packaged food. So feed them off your plate, feed them, pre-chew it, mash it up. Feed them the food you're eating so that they learn that kind of communal experience. The pouches and puffs and other kind of baby foods are great in between meals or as supplements to meals. But it's good. It's have fun with it. And when in doubt, feed them meat.
Yes, man. Thank you for sharing that and bringing that in, because it's I think inviting men into the conversation really important, right? And then for us to also be thinking about what are you eating? Even if right now, if you're a dad and you got, all your kids are over 10 or whatever, what are you guys eating in your house, right? What did you have for breakfast, lunch, dinner? So I am a morning person, and I make my kids breakfast and I make my kids their lunches and send them off, because if it was just up to them, they would just put it would be just dog shit, they would not feed themselves well. So I can make a good food for them. I think it's really important. Do you even have a basic understanding of your macro breakdown of how much protein do you need? How much carbs do you need? How much fats do you need? I don't know that. People spend enough energy understanding that. Now, clearly you're having your baby and you want to do a great job for your baby, but at some point we stop caring for ourselves. We stop caring even what our kids are eating to some degree. So critical at any stage that your kids are to lean into what are you feeding? And then last thing, sorry, I just want to say, Joe, you said make it fun. Food should be enjoyable. It should be fun. And that doesn't mean it can't be healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine line between worrying about it too much and carefully calculating it all, and just let them eat whatever, right? There's a big window of it can be fun, it can be engaging, we can be smart about it, we can offer different things. I'd say the only thing that I would say is off limits that I would say do not give a baby is dessert. Don't give them ice cream, cake, cookies. They're going to eat plenty of that in their life, and they just don't need it as a baby. And, worst case, they get addicted to it. So it's okay if you eat that stuff. And as they become kids, they're going to want that. And you can have your own relationship with sugar and children. Everybody has to figure that out. I just say for a baby, don't give them cake. Just don't give them just great sugar. Fruit, fine, little pieces of that, mashed up bananas, pretty classic, or applesauce or whatever. Fine on, don't make sure they get a bunch of other stuff too. Just to avoid this. If you're avoiding cake, basically you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, good. Joe, dude, thank you. My last question for you is a legacy question. Your daughter right now, 6. Imagine 35 years from now. So 35 years from now, she is your age. She's right around like young 40s. If you were standing out on a street, peering into her home, what would you see happening inside her home that you're just moved like, I did my job and her life is full? What would you see happening?
First comes to mind is family dinner. I want to see them together as a family at dinner. Yes, eating healthy food and engaging with each other, as fully expressed present beings. I don't know that I'd want to see one of the kids crying, but if I did, I would want to see that like aloud, but like it's not just like they're performative or like the family dinners that everybody suffers through. It's like that they're like engaged, they like each other, they're there, they're connected to each other, that her and her partner are connected, that it's not all about the kids, that they're interacting with each other. I'd want to see that. I imagine her partner being a lot like me. I have a lot of excitement for whoever she partners with, having someone more like me. They say you marry your father, right? Girls marry their father. So I think a lot about that. Both excitement that I would hope she'd have somebody like me, but it's also like I better show up as the person she's going to marry, right? Because like there's kind of another invitation to be a really good man, because whoever I model for her is probably who she's going to be with forever. So it's kind of like I feel good that I feel like I must be doing it right if I would want her to have somebody like me. Yeah, I feel proud of that.
Joe, dude, this has been so fun. I really enjoyed getting to know you more. I just love the way you show up to life. I love that you are still on this growth path of being the very best Joe that that was thought of when you came into this world. I'm just excited to like continue to see what you guys do with your food and your business, and what a gift that you guys created this for people. So thank you. Much love, blessing to you and your family, dude. And I hope our paths cross again in the future.
Thank you. Really enjoyed your book and your work, and but I've continued to use you as a role model as I build out my own dad platform, Dedicated Joe, and where people can learn more about these kind of perspectives and that early childhood experience. So
yeah, and where can people find your podcast and learn more about that?
Yeah, so Dedicated Joe on all podcast platforms, at Dedicated Joe on Instagram and other social media, as well as YouTube, Dedicated Joe for all the exclusive content and tips and tricks. It's a new dad's guide to the upending and transformational experience of becoming a father. So if you know a pregnant guy who's recently pregnant or had just had a baby, that's the perfect time to send them Dedicated Joe.
Love it. All right, my friend. What an incredible conversation. So much fun getting to know Joe more. I love hearing his perspective. I love the way he embraces his masculinity, his role as a father, the way he steps into a relationship with his daughter. So fun, so fun. I encourage you, go check out his Instagram. Like really open your mind to just ribbon cuttings and just fun, extravagant things that he does with his daughter, and how incredible this company that him and his wife created. And I just love the ending there, like really thinking about what it is we're feeding our kids, and that you and I as fathers really get to step into that. Go check out his company, check out his podcast. My friends, if these conversations are helpful, please write a review, share this with a friend. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes Podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, your community needs. This is your guide, Ned. Shout together. Let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.